Welcome to It's Meaningless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs in the first 5 years of business who are tired of stuck and are ready to stomach the brutal truth. We uncover the meaningless daily habits that keep you from protecting and growing in life and in business. This is episode 9, When Bad Things Happen. When Bad Things Happen. So this past weekend, I sit in a stoplight and someone just, you know how it goes, runs into the back of me. So it's kind of hard. It was kind of hard. So, like, thankfully, with all the people who run off these days, thankfully, they didn't run off. Got their information, but I guess kind of the thing that kind of went through my head. Number one, like when I afterwards, like I wasn't like in like pain, like excruciating pain or anything, like anything significant, but I could feel some tension starting to develop in my back, and in my neck. And so I guess kind of like first thoughts, first place I went to was more like, like, unfortunately, like with all that, first place I went to was like kind of thoughts of like, how can I well, I'll take that back. I did go here, but it wasn't first. How can I avoid? Like, what could I have done next time? Next time to avoid being in this situation. But thankfully, this time I didn't spend too much time there. Like in times past, I would have spent lots of time and energy there, which, for me, and I'll get into that a little bit more later, for me, I've learned, like, there's only so much worth that type of exercise has. There's only so much worth that type of exercise has. I guess it's kind of like a post-mortem, but it's not a post-mortem because it's, instead of taking time to methodically go through what the options are, what happened, it's kind of like ad hoc. So like lots of memories and thoughts and stuff just flood in your mind, and there's not really, to me, there's not much benefit in doing in that exercise. Not much. Like I said, we'll go back into that a little bit more in a bit, but the first thing, really the first thing, and I know this is a kind of a shift, but kind of the first thing that really went through my mind was like, after feeling, it's like, I don't have time for this. Like, well, first off, before even realizing that I felt a little something, still, like the thought of like, I don't have time for this. The inconvenience of even just to, like, I guess, do all this stuff associated with talking with the people involved in the accident, exchanging information. Like, that's a minor inconvenience, relatively minor inconvenience. But then even more so, like, I'm thinking I don't have time to deal with like insurance companies and dealing with trying to find out about treatment and stuff, and get my car worked on. Like, that's not what I want in this season. I don't want any of that stuff. So, like, that's where my mind went to first. So I guess the point the point in in bringing this up is really, I guess, to bring out the idea that we all kind of have this delusion. It's really popular, it's really prevalent. And the delusion that we have is fairly simple. And it's this, that if there's some type of formula that would keep us from, I don't know, running into trouble. Like everybody seems to think, I don't know how to use everybody, but most everybody, almost everybody, most everybody's, seem to think that like calamity is beyond them. That's including me. In other words, it can't happen to me type thinking. It won't happen to me. And I'm probably one of the most like if you wanna like put people on a scale, I'm towards the top. I'm an overachiever in this regard. Like I have some reasons in my mind for believing that way. But yeah, a lot of us have this thing of like, it can't happen to me. It won't happen to me. It can't happen to me. That's other people. That's what happens to other people. The problem is, it's not true. It's not true. Like to me, I'll talk here. I'll talk here on this podcast a lot about things I've learned, especially things that I've learned, things I've personally received from God. And I say that from the perspective of like, this is like, God is a big part of my life. He's a big part of the reason I am here. And just like full out there, like he's the only reason I'm here. So like a lot of the things that I'll mention here in this podcast will go back to well, frankly, come from him. And so I like to cite sources, and so like I'll talk about him a lot. At the same time, I want to mention like this is not a Christian or like religious or whatever podcast. That's not what this is. So here, like the point is really to express and expound on truth. It just happens to be that really, to my knowledge, to my understanding, God is the one who corners the market on knowledge and truth. Don't get me wrong, like don't miss it, because this isn't about believing everything that you heard somebody say, but to my knowledge, anything that is true, regardless of where you hear it from, like you can hear it in a pulpit, you can hear it in a nightclub, you can hear it in a back alley. Anything that you hear that's true, it came from God. Don't matter where you hear it from. So that's really kind of the basis for like where I'm coming from and presenting things that I present here. Like I'm after truth. And so I do believe that truth sets us free. And the more we grow in it, the more we embrace it, the freer we'll be. So that's yeah, that's a kind of background on me and kind of this podcast and what it's about. But with that said, the whole point about the delusion, this whole topic of when bad things happen, and that's kind of what I brought up the point about God. I don't know. People wrestle with the idea of why do bad things happen to good people, and I don't know. So we want to say, like, at least the popular thing is there's no easy answer to that. Not really. But I will say this, like, the reason it is such a difficult question is because the way I see it, there's no real way to answer that question outside of bringing God into the equation. And so that'll be kind of like the the foundation. I mean, all the stuff I bring is founded on, like, things that I've learned from God, but that'll definitely be the foundation for most of this conversation. Not that, like, you have to believe in Him to be able to understand what I'm saying, and in fact, this may be this may bring some illumination to things that other people have failed to make clear in the past. Excuse me. So, yeah. So back to the delusion. Our delusion, again, is again the formula. That somehow there's some type of formula that we can reach, I guess, this place of spiritual attunement. Is that the nirvana thing? I think some self-realization, actualization that precludes us from all potential problems, both now and in the future. And we'll live on some sandy beach. I don't know, maybe throwing back some umbrella drinks. And, yeah. Problem free. I think the biggest problem with that is, we even have a saying for it, multiple sayings for it. One is no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. And yet, like, we say that in the gym, for the people that go to the gym, for the people who want to go to the gym. But, like, when real problems hit us, like, we don't really believe it. Because the thing I found, for most people that I've been able to gather from, I know definitely for me, is that when bad things happen, when things that are challenging or struggling happen, and obviously there are much worse things in life than a little fender bender. But the thing I found is that when bad things happen, most people want to know that there was a purpose. That there was a purpose. Like, if I have to go through this pain, if I have to go through this, like, at least let there be some type of purpose in it. And most of the times, a lot of the times, that's not something that's visible. Not something that's readily visible. It seems like there's no purpose. A lot of times, especially in some of the darker challenges that we go through. But the thing is that the saying still holds. Like, pain is in fact what brings about growth, and that happens in every aspect, every piece of life that we get to encounter on this earth. There's a visual that all of the lush green growth can be found in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. So while we seek to like live on the mountain and live up in the clouds, like for good reason. I mean, that they're nice places to be. It does mean that, like, there's a level of growth, there's a level of maturity that is being maturation that we are not experiencing in those times, that we could otherwise be experiencing. In other words, and it's not that, I mean, in other words, I don't think we have to always be in the deepest, darkest pits, because that's different. Like when you go into the gym, you don't stay in the gym 24/7. You need time to sleep. You need time to eat. Your body needs time to rest. So the bad things happening, like for growing people, they kind of should be cyclical. They should come in cycles. For growing people, and like here is entrepreneurs, like, if we're not personally growing, then like how would our businesses grow? How would the enterprises that we build and bound, how would they go to the next level? I've heard multiple times, I'm no expert on this, but I've heard multiple times that like the limitation for growth for any organization is really is really its leadership. And from what I've seen, like, I have no evidence to refute that in any regard whatsoever. And in fact, I'm sure I have evidence to support it. But with that idea in mind, if we want our businesses to grow, if we want our homes and lives and families, the things that we're part of, to grow and thrive, then the bad things that happen are necessary. They are necessary. Um, I'm personally, like, even right now, just being reminded of like things that challenges I went through. Like, I started off the first episode in this podcast talking about when I went through divorce, and like that season was a rough season. Yeah, I guess that's putting it lightly. That was a rough season. Um, Not just going through the divorce, but like all the stuff that led up to it. Um, there was so much stuff going on there. Um, and at the same time, like I look back at it now, and right now I'm 3 years, about a little bit over 3 years removed from the start of that process. Um, from the start of that divorce process. Um, a year removed from the final conclusion. Um, but that season, I look back on that season now, and I realize, like, I wouldn't trade that season. I wouldn't trade having gone through that time, because of, like, looking back, I'm not the same person I was before going through that. Um, and the biggest thing that I got out of going through, um, pretty much hell. Pretty much going through hell. Uh, like having my name smeared, my reputation smeared. Um, like having someone like literally act like against me, like they're working to crucify me. Um, I wouldn't trade that. And there are multiple reasons, but the biggest one that I I really attribute to that is the fact that in those years and in that experience is when I really I really learned how to love people more than more than I ever would have otherwise. Um, and I thought I knew how to love people before. Like, I wasn't like I wasn't a mean guy or anything. It's just that it's something different when you get the opportunity to have someone who is like really coming at you, really coming at you, really coming at you, really coming against you, and you get the opportunity to kind of lay down defenses and choose to, against all against all of what like really gets pushed in media and like the our culture today, against all the messages of like get them back, do this, like really choose to love that person. um there's no other experience like it. There's no other experience like it. Like, I'm thinking about this now, and it's like, if for nothing else but having been able to just witness what people talk about, um, is in love breaking down defenses. Um, there's no other. Um, that would have been enough. That would have been enough for me. So, there's a reason. There's a reason, and we don't have to know ahead of time. We don't have to know while we're going through it. Um, for the reason that, like, the struggles and the things that come up, the things that we face, the things that we could not have avoided. Um, like with this accident thing, I was talking to some people on Sunday um, about um, some of their experiences. Some guys from church, and they were pretty much telling me. Actually, one of them, well, actually, yeah, a couple of them mentioned effectively how they were in situations, pretty much same situation at a red light. In their situations, they saw the person coming up, and in that situation, just realized there was nothing they could do. They were just there, and so they kind of braced or whatever they did for the impact. But there's a lot of times where, like, we're in that position in life, like, we would like to avoid experiencing that pain, experiencing that impact, and sometimes there's not really anything we can do about it. And frankly, that is like the foundation, or the crux of what, like, this whole entire podcast is about. Like, there are many situations, and many more than we realize, many situations in our lives that are just like that, where, like, we're facing challenges, struggles head on that we would like to avoid. But frankly, like, everything's set up to where, like, there's just no getting out. There's just no avoiding it. And so this podcast is really about how do we navigate through that to come out on the other side. In other words, we have to go through it. So being able to embrace that and realize that, and make sure that we come out on the other side better than when we went in. Yeah, better than when we went in. So, doesn't mean without scars. You're gonna have scars. But it doesn't mean just because you have scars that you can't be better than when you went in. So that's all I have for this one. Again, this is episode 9, Tuesdays and Thursdays, here about 8:30 Central Time. Just had daylight savings. So yeah, looking forward to being back on Thursday. Other than that, and there's probably going to be a part 2 of this. Like, there's probably going to be a part 3 too, but definitely a part 2 at some point. There's a lot in this conversation to unpack. Anyway, take care. Bye.